Welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. My name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. I'm an award-winning master-level therapist, and I also have an MBA. I'm the creator of a cognitive restructuring program entitled The Lies That Bind. This show exposes and challenges dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self-defeating behaviors repeatedly despite the consequences. This show is streamed live via Facebook and YouTube every Thursday from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. Hello, my name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. Welcome to episode 24 of the Emancipated Mind Show. This is a show that exposes the root causes of many problems that people face in their lives. Problems such as self-sabotage, procrastination, people-pleasing, dysfunctional relationships, perfectionism, addictions, low self-esteem, codependency, and unrealistic expectations. Tonight's episode is going to focus on people-pleasing and low self-esteem. I'm going to talk about a dysfunctional, unconscious belief that causes people to try to live according to the standards of others, whether those standards are too low or unrealistic. And so I'm going to talk about the belief, how the unconscious belief is programmed into a person's mind during the formative years, and how that belief affects people in their adult lives. I'll talk about how the belief affects individuals in their personal lives and in their professional lives. So whenever you hear me use the terms lies, issues, unaddressed issues, or the buttons people push, as I use those terms interchangeably, I'm referring to dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self-defeating behaviors repeatedly despite the consequences. So the dysfunctional belief that I'm talking about today, that I will be deconstructing today, is this belief here. You have to live according to the standards of others. Now, this is an unconscious belief. People who struggle with this issue, they wouldn't walk into a room and say, hello, I believe I have to live according to the standards of others. The belief is unconscious. So I'm going to talk about how this lie, because it's also a lie, is programmed into people's minds during the formative years and how it affects people in their adult lives. I'm also going to talk about another belief, what I call a villain belief. So I refer to any of the beliefs that you hear me talk about that's on the blue cards. This is my set of the 100 most commonly seen victim lies. I call these victim-based lies. I also have villain-based lies. So I'm going to talk about the villain-based alternate lies. So for every victim lie, such as you have to live according to the standards of others, there's a villain-based version of the belief. So some individuals are afflicted by the belief others or people have to live according to your standards, or they are doing something wrong. So I'm going to talk about how these two beliefs interact with each other. So first, let's talk about how this lie, you have to live according to the standards of others, is programmed into a child's mind during the formative years. The brain is developed, the mind is programmed. The mind is programmed primarily during those critical foundation years. I say usually because there are exceptions to the rule, and because cognitive restructuring is a technique that can help people reprogram their belief system, whether it's conscious or unconscious. That's my specialty. So this lie can find its way into people's minds via observation and maltreatment during the formative years. So if a child is raised in an environment in which he or she has his or her individuality constrained, then the child is being programmed to believe you have to live according to the standards of others. So let me give you an example. Let's say a child is gifted in the arts. So the child can sing, or they're musically inclined. They would do very well playing a musical instrument. They have a gift of dance. But let's say their parents do not have an appreciation of the arts, or their parents don't feel that the arts are valuable, that it's a valuable industry. So they force the child to participate in sports. But the child doesn't like sports. The child is not good at sports, but they force the child into, the baseball, football, whatever they make the child participate in. Then the child can be programmed with the belief you have to live according to the standards of others. So let's say a child is raised in an environment in which he or she is ridiculed for going against the grain. So let's say a child is raised in an environment in which his or her peers like to bully other children, and they like to use profanity. And if the child doesn't talk in that manner, or doesn't like to bully other kids, that child can be ridiculed for not doing what other people are doing. So the child is being programmed to believe you have to live according to the standards of others, no matter what those standards are. And so I'll give another example, but this is a little later in the process. I had a guest speaker come in, and when I was doing groups for court mandated women years ago, I would bring in guest speakers. So one of my guest speakers came in and talked about experience she had. She said she lived in a neighborhood where when she would leave her house to go to work every day, she would see a group of people who lived across the street from her sitting on their porch. And they would be sitting on their porch when she left for work. And when she came home from work, they would still be sitting on the porch. But she said one day when she was leaving for work, she saw one of the individuals who lived in that house. She saw one of them coming out on the porch, and that person had a uniform on to go to work. And so she heard the people sitting on the porch teasing the person who lived in the house with them, who was going to work. They were making fun of her uniform and making fun of the fact that she was going to work. And so this guest speaker said, inside of her, she was like, just keep going, just keep going. And at that point, I was thinking, it might have helped if you had pulled over and said something and encouraged her, but I didn't say that. That's what I thought, though. But anyway, she said that she would see this young lady going to work and for about a week or so. And every time she came out, I guess they would come out at approximately the same time and leave for work. She would hear the people on the porch teasing this person. It was a young lady. And she said a few weeks later, when she was leaving for work, she looked across the street and she saw the young lady sitting on the porch with the other people who sat on the porch all day. And she said from then on, that young lady would be sitting on the porch. And I thought that was such a sad story, but it also demonstrates this belief. You have to live according to the standards of others. And a lot of times those standards are very low. They're too low for your capacity. And so another way this belief or this lie, you have to live according to the standards of others, can be programmed into a child's mind is via observation. So let's say a child is raised in an environment in which he or she observes people being ridiculed for not living to the so-called standard of the environment. And this standard may be poverty, it may be dysfunctional relationships, it may be disrespecting yourself and other people. But if a child sees individuals being ridiculed for not adapting to the standard, no matter what the standard is, this belief can be programmed into the child's mind. You have to live according to the standards of others. If a child is raised in an environment in which he or she observes people being ostracized for not not doing what is considered standard operating procedures, then the child is being programmed with this belief. The child is being conditioned to believe I have to do what others are doing around me, even if I don't want to do it or I'm going to be rejected. So if there's no intervention, if there's no cognitive restructuring, this belief or this lie will follow the child into his or her adult life. So I'll give you some examples of people obeying this belief in their personal lives and in their professional lives. I have a master's in business administration and a master's in social work. So and I work with a lot of professionals. So these beliefs don't stay in the car when we go to work. These dysfunctional beliefs, none of them. And either set. It would be nice if they stayed in the car when we went to work, but they don't. So first I'll talk about how this lie affects people in their personal lives. So in a person's adult life, if they're afflicted by this belief, they could spend their entire life living a substandard existence to be accepted by others who live in that manner. And I'm going to give a few real life examples shortly. They can walk around feeling frustrated and discontented, doing what others expect them to do for decades, which is something they never wanted to do. And that happens. A lot of people who have what they call midlife crisis, they call it something else now, but midlife crisis is what most people know it as. A lot of people, it's because of this belief. A lot of people have spent decades living according to the standards of others, and they get to a certain age and they realize, hey, half of my life is over and I haven't enjoyed it. I've been doing what other people wanted me to do. I've been doing what other people expected me to do. And so they start making these vast changes, and a lot of them are not healthy because they're angry and they're bitter and they're frustrated because they've been living according to the standards of others for a long time and they haven't been enjoying their lives. Another way this lie affects individuals in their adult lives is it causes people to feel envious of others who followed their dreams despite what others thought about their decisions. So they get mad because they see other people like, how dare you be happy? And I remember an incident where I was living in a recovery house. For people who don't know my story, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I have 22 and a half years clean from drugs and alcohol. So the first couple of years of my recovery, I lived in a recovery house and I went to college. And so I remember one young lady making a comment when she saw me, almost finishing one degree and getting a job, a nice job. It wasn't a job, it was a career. And so she looked at me, she said, how dare you just plan your life and walk that plan down? And we both laughed. She said it in a joking manner, but apparently she was also serious. And she was saying that, and what she didn't realize is I didn't have this master plan I was walking down. I was winging it, really. I just knew that I didn't want to have certain types of jobs that I saw other people with. I wanted a career. And so I had to overcome this belief myself, but this was never a major belief that I had. It was to a certain extent, but it was never a major issue. I had performance issues I needed to work through, and those performance issues directed me towards the university. So to the college and then the university. But she was laughing. But what she was saying, because I watched her life, she was struggling with this belief. She was struggling with making decisions based on what she thought others wanted her to do. And she saw me going against the grain. And I was going against the grain because I was getting teased. Some of the other residents at the recovery house would tease me when they saw me going to my internship. Because for one of the semesters at the college, for the first degree I obtained, we had to do an internship for 3 months. And I did the internship. I wasn't getting paid for it, but I had to go dressed professionally. So they would see me leaving every morning dressed in a suit, and carrying a little briefcase. And they were like, there go Anneshia going to work for the free. There go Anneshia going to work for the free because they had jobs. They had jobs, in factories, but they were good paying jobs. But they were judging me and making fun of me. I ignored them. My ignore game was strong. I still was. I would stand up to people, usually not appropriately at that point in my recovery. I had to learn appropriate conflict resolution, but I ignored them because I knew that I did not have to live according to the standards of others. I wasn't judging them if they made a decision that they wanted to work or, at a certain place and have an income so they could buy cars and different things they were buying. That was their decision and they had a right to make that decision. But I had made a decision that I was going to get my degree and I was going to go to college. And so, even though they judged me and made fun of me, I didn't follow this lie. You have to live according to the standards of others. I didn't. And so another example of having to fight this belief was that a lot of times when I would go to a support meeting, I'm a member of a well-known self-help support group, and I would go and share about the frustrations of going to college because it was hard. You would think by the time I got to the second degree, I would have adjusted, right? Every semester for 4 college degrees, I would go to my support meetings and vent about how hard school was. And I was like, this is unrealistic expectation. Every time I got the syllabus for the next semester for the classes, I would be like, this is ridiculous. How do they expect somebody to do this? And I made it through every time. But when I would share at some of these meetings, some people would encourage me and, share their stories, but some people would share behind me and they would say, some people think they better than because they go on to college, or they think they all of that because they have a couple degrees. And I ignored them because I understood. I wasn't thinking I was better than, you know what I was thinking? I was thinking, this is hard. This is hard. I was thinking, I just want to go to sleep. I'm tired. That's what I was thinking. I wasn't sitting there thinking I am better. I was like, this is really hard. This is really a hard process. That's what I was thinking. So I ignored them because they had a right to live at whatever standard of life they chose. It was their life. But guess what? I had the same right to live at whatever standard of living I chose. I do not have to live, and you do not have to live according to the standards of others. This is a lie. But a lot of people do not enjoy their lives. They're frustrated, discontented because they believe the lie. And so let's talk about how this dysfunctional belief can affect people in their professional lives. So some people stay stuck in dead-end jobs because that's the standard that other people around them follow. Stay around people who stay in the same job, not career, I said job, and they're miserable. It'd be one thing if you have a job that you retired from, you spend your life there, you enjoyed the job, but there are some people who are not happy. They are the opposite of happy. And so they will stay there because they see others stay with a job that they're not happy with. Other people have normalized living like that, other people have normalized it. And so they say, hey, I'm just going to stay at this dead-end job because that's the standard operating procedures of people in their environment. Another way this lie can affect people in their professional lives is it can cause some people to engage in unethical practice because that is the standard at a particular company or an organization. So I'll give you an example. I went to a training by a gentleman who used to own his own counseling agency. He, at this point where I was going to his training, he had stopped, running the organization. He was just doing trainings for other people, other service providers. But he told an example in his training, and he was conducting a training on ethics. And he gave an example at the training. He said that one company had came to him and offered him a contract. And this company had told him, we will give you this amount of money, but we want you to use it this way to work with this people who have this particular diagnosis. And so the person, he was a therapist, he said, he told the company no. He said, the way that, what you're asking me to do, the way you're asking me to do it, he said, is unethical. He said, that's not going to help people. That's not going to help people with that diagnosis. And so I'm not going to do it. So the company that approached him, they were like, well, we'll take our contract and give it to someone else. And he said, well, I wish you the best. Bye. And he showed them out the door because he didn't believe he had to live according to the standards of others. He didn't struggle with this issue. And he said that about a year later, they came back to him because apparently whoever they did get that contract to, it did not go well. And they came back to him a year later and said, okay, if we give you this contract, what should it look like? What do you need to be able to? And he told them, and they gave him the contract. He didn't suffer with this lie. So this lie will make people engage in unethical practices because that's the so-called standard. So another way this lie can affect people in their professional lives is not going after promotions, because the person who's afflicted by this lie may feel fear being rejected by those he or she worked on certain levels. So let's say you're a frontline worker and an opportunity comes up to be promoted to a manager. Some people won't go after that promotion because there's other people that they work with in those positions that have stayed in those positions, and that's okay. If you like your position and you want to stay in it, that's fine. But there's some individuals who want to advance, but they are afraid to go after those opportunities because they have this dysfunctional belief calling the play for them. This belief is telling them you have to live according to the standards of others. So if they work around a group of 30 people and these 30 people have been in these certain positions on this certain level for 10 years or 15 years, and they say they may dislike and tell them, well, if you go after that promotion, you may be rejected by this group of people that you've built this relationship with. And in some cases, that's not true. But in some instances, you will be rejected by people who feel like you have, done something that you shouldn't have done according to their cognitive distortions. And here is the cognitive distortions that make a lot of individuals act in that manner. It's the villain version of the belief. Others have to live according to your standards or they're doing something wrong. So people who have this cognitive distortion in their belief system will trigger this cognitive distortion in other people. See how that works? See how these two works together? That's why I stopped selling the victim lies in the set individually. When people buy my cars, they got to get both. They need to understand how both belief systems work, because even if they don't struggle with villain-based beliefs, they struggle. Even if a person struggles primarily with victim-based beliefs, they need to understand not only how to fight those dysfunctional beliefs that they struggle with, but they also need to understand other individuals who struggle with the opposite belief. Why? Well, not because they need to try to perform cognitive restructuring on those people afflicted by villain-based beliefs. It's just so that they don't take their attitudes and behaviors personally. So they can be like, oh, that's your cognitive distortion, and go on about their business, right? Don't say it out loud, but they can say it to themselves. Oh, okay, so you mad at me because I'm going to college because you believe that people have to live according to your standards. Oh, okay. So that's why you're acting like that. It's not because I've done anything wrong. You have a right to live your life. They have a right to live their lives at whatever level or standard they're okay with. But you do not have to live according to the standards of others. So I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the lie, you have to live according to the standards of others. First, I'm going to read a functional belief that challenges this lie in general. Then I'm going to read a functional belief that challenges the way this lie affects people in their professional lives. So first, I'll read the general way. I will spend the rest of my life frustrated and unfulfilled if I don't get this lie under control. This is the only life that I have. This is the real thing. This is not a dress rehearsal. I had better start living according to what I really want out of life and what I really believe in. Now, it may take me some time to learn how to distinguish between what my issues tell me I deserve and between what I really want in life. But as I start making those distinctions, I owe it to myself to take the appropriate actions to align my life with my new beliefs. It may be painful at times. It will be confusing. I will wonder if I made a mistake. And I may, in fact, make mistakes, but that is not the time for me to stop learning how to live according to my real values and standards. I will keep pushing toward the goal of self actualization. I must do this. So now I'm going to read a functional belief that challenges the way this lie, you have to live according to the standards of others, affect people in their professional lives. There are certain standards that one must adhere to and abide by in various industries and professions. There are also status quo standards that you do not have to observe just to fit in with mediocrity. Some people's standards are too low for your capacity. You can set the bar for what you want to do in your career. Some individual standards are too high. They have unrealistic expectations for themselves and others. For example, you don't have to neglect your family and your health because that is the standard that certain people live by to demonstrate their grind. They will grind themselves into a heart attack or a stroke. You can be highly successful and have a balanced life. You don't have to commit fraud because that is the standard operating procedures of certain people around you. This is your life. Don't spend your golden years shooting on yourself. I should have did this. I should have did that. I should not have done this. Should not have done that. Determine your standards and set your bar. So now I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the villain version of the lie. Others or people have to live according to your standards or they're doing something wrong. You are not the master of the universe. You don't have the right to dictate the standards by which others should live. If a certain way of living is working for you, good. You can share your policies and procedures with others, but you have no right to demand that other adults live according to your standards. There are a lot of people who believe in your way of doing things. There are a lot of people who believe your way of doing things are incorrect. They have a right to their opinions, but that doesn't mean you have to change your methods. Well, that also applies to you. You may feel as if others are not doing things the right way or are not living the right way. You don't have a right to demand they change. Ask yourself why you need that type of power and control over the lives of others. What's really going on with you? Learn to accept and respect people for who they are and where they are on their journey. You may find them respecting you and wanting to learn from you. So I see I got a couple comments here. I'm going to see if there's any. Well, thank you, Carolyn. She said, this is great information. Thank you for your comments. So I'm ending a little early tonight, but I just want to thank you for attending episode 24 of the Emancipated Mind Show. If you would like more information about my work, or if you're interested in any of my material, I'm going to put a link in the comment section to my website. You can purchase my set of the 100 most commonly seen victim lies and a set of the 100 most commonly seen villain lies on my website. They are sold, they come together in a package with this workbook. I also have a workbook entitled The Adult Reenactment of the Childhood Script. It's available on my website. I have a workbook entitled My Unaddressed Issues Make My Budget and My Schedule. Every one of these beliefs make demands on people's time and on their money. And I break it down in that workbook. I also have a book entitled What's Really Going On. It has 31 cognitive restructuring articles in it that were originally featured in a bi-weekly column that I wrote for a newspaper several years ago. I have a fresh batch in, fresh off the printing press. So feel free to check out the store page on my website. I also offer life coaching packages. So I'll also put the link in the comments where you can purchase a package, a life coaching package, if you're interested in working with me individually. So that's all for this episode. Enjoy your evening and thanks. And I hope to see you again back here next Thursday, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you soon. Thank you for watching the Emancipated Mind Show. Join me every week live on Facebook and YouTube on Thursdays from 7:00 p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about my products and services, feel free to visit my website, AnnesiaConsulting.com, or my website, AnnesiaSpeaks.com. I can also be reached via email at afreeman@AnnesiaConsulting.com. I'll see you next week.